This is Hawaiian Potpourri. My name is Polka Lainui, and I open the second hour of this morning show by inviting you to call should you wish to express an opinion. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. During the top of the hour break and when we had the news was that Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, had declared that Iran is 6 months away from creating a nuclear weapon. My response is that he is a liar. The information coming out of the United Nations, out of actually the IAEA, is that Iran is in fact converting a greater portion and therefore decreasing its supply of uranium 21, I think it is, to convert it to plates to be used for hospital purposes or health practice purposes. Once making that conversion, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to convert it back for creating nuclear weapons. This 6-month issue is part of the continuing lies that is coming out of Israel in their saber rattling to attack Iran and really trying to interpose itself in the presidential election between Obama and Romney. It now becomes a sense that Romney is losing, and so either making that switch so that Romney will be more favored among the American electorates, or at least changing the position of Barack Obama to be more favorable to Israel. And so I think as you hear this report, you should hear it with that that sensitivity, knowing of the lies that is being produced out of Israel. All right, our telephone number again is 524-1080. Let's go to our telephone line. Aloha caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Polka. How are you?
Yes, fine. Good morning.
Good to hear your voice and the voices of the callers.
Thank you.
You beat me to the punch. I had the exact same wording of the analysis of the leader of Israel.
Oh.
And it seems like we have heard that analysis put forth by leaders in the United States not too long ago about another nation, and we had found that although desperately searching for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, they were never to be found. I did want to talk a little bit about mental health.
Yes.
And, I'm constantly mindful of the gratitude I have for you and the persons who call in, who contribute to the analysis of our world and our society here in Hawaii, from rail to corruption in government here, to the denial of the rights of stolen lands, to international and national events. And I know that researchers have shown that oftentimes when a person is situated in an environment that really is complex and really is, I'll use a term, spiritually illuminating evilness, by being self-absorbed, greedy, and intolerant of different views. And I guess I'm also saying that the deep culture idiom that you use, the DIE, people who are very much into perpetuating dominance, individualism, and exclusion, as the United States government does so well, that it promotes a sense of helplessness and hopelessness. And underlying that is an epidemic of cynicism and pessimism in our society. And I believe that depression is the leading diagnostic illness in our society. And it results in the highest level of pharmaceutical antidepressants being sold in our nation. The question, really begs for an answer to what kind of society contributes to this epidemic of depression in our society and other related mental health problems. We have a crisis of mental health and a crisis of mental health care. But with that, and I am going to say something that some callers may say, wow, that's kind of flowery, or that's kind of non-specific, but I do ask patience in just hearing a couple of minutes here. And that is, we are all susceptible to adversely being impacted by what's going on around us in ways that undermine our mental health as well as physical health and well-being. And I would suggest that it's important for all of us to do a couple of things that I've learned from this show. One is that we can draw from the ancient adage that without vision, people perish. Without vision, people perish. It seems like that ancient adage has become actualized in every empire that historians have written about, including what appears to be the ongoing demise of the Empire of the United States. And without vision, we will perish. And so I would suggest that one thing we can do as individuals is to do something that we forfeit too early in our childhoods or adolescence. And that is something that we all can do, and that's to exercise our right and responsibility to dream of a society that can be, must be. I'm mindful of having worked with Jesse Jackson in his presidential campaigns. In one of his speeches, he made it clear that we should dream of a society that nurtures teachers who teach for life and not just a living. In a society that nurtures lawyers to be more concerned about justice than a judgeship. Doctors who are more concerned about public health than personal wealth. Those are kind of concrete images that could represent the beginning of a vision based on love, compassion, and justice. We seem to be forfeiting our individual responsibility to dream of a world that can be and must be, and being receptive to the insane notion of endless wars that many people are accepting as a truth in our society. The second recommendation for mental health for all of us that we can do as individuals really comes out of the important model of deep culture that you talk about. One of the important things I get from that is understanding the values that underlie our actions and our beliefs. And so I would encourage us to think of doing some mental health self-care by pausing. Anytime we make a statement about what's going on in the world and criticize what's going on or put forth what we would like to see go on, is to take just 1 minute and to reflect on what values underlie my belief in that criticism, in my suggestion for making it better, so that we can increase our consciousness, become more aware of ourselves and our values. And I think that can help us move beyond pessimism and cynicism and to become empowered as individuals and hopefully collectively as a society in Hawaii. So I want to provide a brief mental health consult with your listenership and express my concern about how we are in this state of crisis, and I appreciate you letting me mention that this morning.
Well, I appreciate your thoughtfulness and very methodical approach of going down and building the foundation so that as you move from step to step, we have seen how that foundation and why that movement in your very logical, rational thinking. The difficulty is to retain all of this in the last 5 to 10 minutes that you were explaining that. And the thing is, you need to remember that it needs to be explained over and over again. So don't hesitate to call and to visit these principles, and to, even if necessary, repeating the principles, because people do not retain things until they've heard it at least 3 times. So I invite you to feel free to continue with these analysis that you provide.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know that as a community psychology-minded person and a community organizer, I realize that seeding the land of consciousness is important, and that requires repeating a perspective over and over, so that individuals have an opportunity to critique it, to ask for revisions of that, and to do so in ways that make myself and others better, as we are bounded together by a common consciousness. So I will take time, and I appreciate that, because sometimes I get self-conscious about making these points and feeling like it may be only relevant or important to me, and I know that it is important to you, so I appreciate your invitation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for calling.
Have a nice day.
And don't hesitate to call back anytime. Aloha.
Thank you, and have a nice day.
You too. Aloha.
Bye.
And if you would like to call, our telephone number is 524-1080. Perhaps now people or others can understand why I keep coming back to that old rag about deep cultures, because I think that is so important, and I find that repetition may be necessary, so that as we consider these things, we raise those issues. I don't know if there's a problem with the telephone. I'm going to try to pick up the next caller, and if I have a problem, I'm going to ask a caller to call back. Now it seems that even our line number 1 is not working appropriately. Aloha, caller? No, it's not there. Just a minute. And I'm still not getting the caller. Hang on a minute. Oops. Hello, caller. Are you there? Hello, caller. Okay, we are having a problem with that line, so just call back. Our lines are open at the present time, and we'll put you on the air. You are listening to Poka Laing Nui. The name of this program is Hawaiian Potpourri, where you really get a potpourri of different thoughts being broadcast. Let's go to our next caller. Aloha, caller. Thank you for calling. Welcome to the program.
Yes, Poka. It was that telephone call before. They seemed to get mixed up somehow, because I could hear you perfectly.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Maybe that's a secret.
I heard the whole conversation between you and Michael. But I would just like to interject a thought to Michael's thoughts.
Go ahead.
And it started off about referring to we must have vision in order to survive.
Yes.
And I've often thought of that, and I came up with this idea of profit. I think I mentioned it before, versus profit. It's a different spelling you see there. And I had said something about having dollar signs in the pupils, and you can't learn. Well, that brings me to a point that I would like to make in trying to help others, including the self, to try to have a better vision. So therefore, I would start with putting these ideas on an organic level. Vision related to eyes. Okay, we want to see.
Okay.
Therefore, the first thing I would do is to remove all symbols from in front of you, no matter what they were. And that's why I said before, at your meeting, I would suggest that nobody be allowed to wear anything symbolic of their religion or club or nothing, only their clothing and their language, which is symbolic enough.
Okay.
So that, I think, is a requirement to begin, even in our thoughts, to gather these people together. And then I'd like to refer to the business of profit versus profit, because we have replaced profit, for profit. We put that in place, and that means money in place of a God consciousness. So now that makes me laugh when I think of there's the green dollar, and it says, "In God we trust." It's like a little flag.
Yeah.
And you see, and so they hold it up in front of the people who live through symbols only. They wave it around like their little flag, and people have heard enough about green, and they say, "Oh, it's green, let's follow it. You know, it's God, it's green, it's green." I have a motto for that. It says, "Green earth, not green buck."
Okay.
Now, you see, I'm carrying this on too long. I shouldn't.
You're thinking too much. Is that what you're saying?
Now, isn't that terrible feeling too good over these dreadful things? I mean, that's strange. Well, I do have more notes, but I won't get into them. But I do appreciate Michael's reference to oppression, and I think if we still line up the way I had done it, oppression, repression, suppression, depression, so that if we look from the bottom up, we'll be able to see the next step. The next step is to begin to release the suppression, which is something we put on ourselves, and then we'll be able to see next step. In other words, open one door and the other will keep opening until you get at the source. And then by removing these symbols, we get behind the symbols, and perhaps we can face reality, which we're going to do anyway. I mean, we're not going to do it willingly.
Yeah.
We're going to keep hiding behind our symbols,
Right.
and that's even language. So we have to be careful too, and accept mistakes. So much we've all been so programmed that I appreciated criticism of a mistake I made in that respect. So, well, happy Sunday.
Okay, thank you very much for calling.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Aloha. And if you'd like to call, don't call in this next few minutes. I'm going to make some comments, and then I think I'm going to have to end up playing another song. And it's not all that bad. I enjoy the songs. It's a lot to think about, however. Now, our last caller, our sister who called, talks about approaching it from the very organic, or seeing it through the eyes and the symbols that it represents. And as she was speaking, I also thought about the symbolicness of slippers. And when you go into a home in Hawaii, which comes from a Japanese tradition, and I think it's a common sense tradition, with especially working on the plantation and people coming in with the shoes or the slippers into the home, you would want to take it off. But the tradition, as you go into a Japanese house, or as you go to a dojo, or as you go to a formalized Japanese establishment, you take your slippers off at the door, so that when you walk into the house, you do not carry that baggage of the weight of the problems that you have accumulated as you enter into the sacredness of your home or a house. And normally what you do is you take the slippers and you face it outside, so that it doesn't appear that the energy or the problems that you brought to the door will go inside. So that's just one of the symbolisms, but the idea that she is talking about, I think the slippers also represent that general idea that when you come to such discussions, you try to take off all of the symbols that normally one would wear. And that would be the cross of David, or the Christian cross, or the Star of David, the Christian cross, or an Islamic symbol, or any other religious symbols. You try to leave it back for the purposes of this kind of visioning, because when you do that questioning of yourself and of others about what baggage you may carry, you want to leave all of that aside and then just come in with hopefully as clean a slate, or as clear a mind as you possibly can. The idea of imagery, of symbols, can be very, very powerful. And what she was talking about when the dollar bill says "In God We Trust," people actually take that dollar bill as a representation of their religion, and the invocation of the Word of God somehow elevates the righteousness of the dollar bill. To support that, I had a client who decided that he went along with a program on why he should not need to file income taxes according to American law. And he saw the symbol of the Bible as well as the American Constitution, one overlaying the other. And based on that, he concluded that this course, which raises the voice of God through the Bible and associated so closely with the Constitution, it must be carrying all righteousness, and it must be good, and it must be accurate, and it must be appropriate. And if it's telling you don't need to file income tax returns, then it must be the case. Notwithstanding the fact that he was not the brightest person, he could read and write at the third grade level, and his thinking process was not any deeper than that, but it did carry very strong symbolic messages, and many people are affected by similar symbolic messages. So with that said, I note that my time is up.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii, Kupa ama hope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka paka. Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave, Koku ana honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano, Pa'apu me ke oni o ka kuhi hewa. Aolea e kau I ka pulima, Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi, Po'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa, I ka pono sivila a o ke kanā.